In the last 50 years, there has been no apparent increase in personal happiness in Western nations, despite steadily growing economies. In both Europe and the USA, surveys have found no greater level of happiness since the 1950s, which seems strange since wealthier people generally claim to be happier than poorer people. In America, for example, more than a third of the richest group said they were very happy, while only half this number of the poorest made the same claim. Although, it would be logical to expect that rising national wealth would lead to greater national happiness, this has not happened. Individually, more money does seem to increase happiness, but when everyone gets richer, no one appears to feel better. Economists have recently paid more attention to studying happiness, instead of the more traditional GDP per person. One suggestion has been that people rapidly get used to improvements, and therefore devalue them. Central heating is a good example. Whereas 30 years ago it was a luxury item, today it is standard in nearly every home.
Most medical people despise the press, holding attitudes not totally unfamiliar today. Reporters tended to be suckers for every quack, half-quack, overeager scientist, or naive country doctor who thought he had a serum to cure tuberculosis, a herbal remedy for cancer, or a new surgical procedure to rejuvenate the aged. When the newspapers were not wasting space on undeserving medical stories, they were overplaying legitimate news, getting their facts wrong, and generally making a nuisance of themselves, interfering in the lives and practices of busy professionals. Doctors' deep suspicion of what they read in the newspapers, and even in the less carefully edited of the medical journals, helps to explain some of the early skepticism about insulin in countries like Britain. Oh, the Americans are always curing everything. This week it's diabetes. Even in Canada and the United States, it was some months before there was enough confirmation of the unlikely news from Toronto to convince wire services and the more skeptical doctors and editors that insulin was, indeed, the real thing.
So Irving Fisher, remember, he cleared up the confusion of what interest was. He said interest is crystallized impatience. It's not some horribly unjust thing. It's not, as Marx thought, exploitation, but Shakespeare had discovered all this 300 years before. Now, when was your age or a little bit younger than you in high school? We all had to read The Merchant of Venice. I have two Indian co-authors who are vaguely my age, maybe a little older, but anyway they sort of grew up in India and they had to learn The Merchant of Venice, and actually, they learned it a lot better than Elle did. They both have memorized The Merchant of Venice. They can recite almost the entire thing by heart. But anyway, when I was in high school it was completely typical to study The Merchant of Venice. Wonder how many of you have actually read it. Who's read The Merchant of Venice? Ooh, this is Yale, I'm shocked. So a quarter of you have read it. Well, I recommend to the other 3/4 that you do read it. But the way the play is read now, that's the whole story, and I don't think it's the whole story. In fact, I think it's quite an unimportant part of the story. I think the heart of the story is Shakespeare's commentary comics. And so I'm going to try and argue in the next 10 minutes that Shakespeare was not only a great writer, a great psychologist, but a great economist.
Listen to the recording and answer the multiple choice question by selecting all the correct responses. You will need to select more than one response.
Now, let's talk about the symptoms of oral cancer. First off, a regular checkup with your dentist is a good time to check for signs of cancer. The exam should include a close inspection of the roof of the mouth, the back of the throat, and the insides of the cheeks for either white or red patches. Other problems which can indicate an oral cancer would be bleeding from the mouth and loose teeth. If any white patches or red and white patches are found in the mouth, these are telltale signs of possible oral cancer. Should these patches be observed, the dentist will most likely order biopsy to determine whether or not they are malignant. The dentist must also rule out other causes for these patches, as these are also associated with infections. If you notice any white or red and white patch or patches in your mouth, it is recommended that you visit your dentist or doctor immediately.
Listen to the recording and answer the multiple choice question by selecting all the correct responses. You will need to select more than one response.
Team building exercises consist of a variety of tasks which are designed to develop group members and their ability to work together effectively. There are many types of team building activities that range from games for kids to games and challenges that involve new and complex tasks that are designed to improve group performance by addressing specific needs. These exercises can range from simple social activities, such as encouraging team members to spend time together, to activities for team development, which help team members discover how they approach problems, how the team can work together, and to discover better methods of communication. Team interaction involves interpersonal skills, which include communication, negotiation, leadership, and motivation. This is in contrast to technical skills, which are directly involved with our particular job. Depending on the type of team building, the new tasks can encourage or specifically teach interpersonal skills to increase team performance. Whether these exercises occur indoor or outdoor, the purpose is to assist a team in becoming a cohesive unit consisting of individuals who can effectively work together. Some corporate team building companies theme their events around popular cultures such as TV game shows in order to add an element of fun to the exercise.
You will hear a recording. Type the missing words in each blank. In the eternal cycle of natural reproduction, many mysteries remained unanswered. But today, the scientists have explored the mystery to such an extent that cloning is being used to solve the food problem. Not only that, even the American Food Department is considering allowing cloning of animals to provide fresh meat to the American people. The cloning companies are mushrooming in the U.S., and it is now commonplace to find cloned animals in the meat market. A dead animal is also used in the laboratory to produce clones. You will hear a recording. Type the missing words in each blank.
Coal has been much in use well before the other forms of hydrocarbons like petroleum were discovered. It may have lost use in home and hearth because of its alleged polluting effect, but it still reigns supreme in some industrial uses. Coal is a major commodity that serves many, many purposes. Its chief use now is to power our electrical generators so that we can have electricity. Earlier, it was used to power steamships and railroads, and for many other purposes. But now, the number one use is for power generation. Coal is a fossil fuel that has played a big role in many fields and has truly been the harbinger of industrial revolution. It was exploited to such an extent that at one point it was becoming increasingly rare and difficult to find. In the modern world, however, coal is abundant and the largest source of electricity. It is still responsible for fulfilling a majority of the electricity demands across the world.
You will hear a recording. Type the missing words in each blank.
To harvest rainwater for effective and efficient use, it has to be cultured through a proper system of collection and storage. Following are the components which would make up such a system: catchment, transportation, first flush, and filter. The catchment area comprises of the surface that directly receives the rainfall. This can be an open ground, courtyard, or terrace. The water received is then transported from the catchment area through water pipes or drains to the storage area. In the pipes, the rainwater is passed through the first flush, as the water may contain contaminants from the atmosphere and the catchment roof. Subsequently, it is filtered to remove colour, turbidity and bioforms which may be found. Filters can consist of a charcoal filter, sand-gravel filter, PVC pipe filter, or a sponge filter, or a combination of these. From here, the water is either sent to storage tank or directly recharge the water table. A rooftop rainwater harvesting system includes storage in a tank equipped with an excess water overflow system, in which excess water is diverted to a recharge system which helps in conserving groundwater.
You will hear a recording. Click on the paragraph that best relates to the recording.
A person's good health is the result of the cooperation among all the different substances interacting with each other in our bodies. For chemical reactions to take place smoothly in the body, it is important that all these substances work together. One of the most important substances that the body uses and needs are called vitamins. In 1912, Dr. Casimir Funk invented the term vitamin. At the time, he was studying a substance in the hull that covers rice. It was believed this substance could cure the disease beriberi. So far, scientists have discovered 14 different kinds of vitamins. The major vitamins are vitamin A, the B group, C, D, E, and vitamin K. All these vitamins are very important in carrying out the chemical changes which happen within the cells of our bodies and are essential for the body to maintain itself. James Lind of Scotland was the first person to be involved in this sort of research. While he was in the Navy, he was investigating a disease known as scurvy. As part of his research, Dr. Lind found that sailors who ate oranges and/or lemons improved over time as compared to men who did not. Dr. Lind was correct in assuming that eating citrus fruit cured scurvy. This is because the disease scurvy is caused by lack of vitamin C. When you do not receive any vitamin C, or very little, over time, you will develop this disease. Because citrus fruits contain vitamin C, they are eventually curative. So, scurvy is really a deficiency disease. This means that any deficiency, particularly deficiency of a vitamin, will likely cause some sort of disease.
Okay, let's talk about the most important meal of the day. This of course is breakfast. In the morning everyone is in a hurry, and even though they may feel somewhat relaxed after a night's sleep, they think that they can manage well without any food in the morning. This is a big mistake because they have to work the whole day and need an adequate amount of energy for this purpose. Furthermore, when they feel hungry, they will often eat unhealthy snacks, and in this way, they will eventually gain weight. This is exactly the opposite of what they may think. Another important factor is the required gap between two meals. Some people tend to take longer breaks in between meals, and as a result, they will gorge on a large quantity of food, which again is not a very healthy practice. Furthermore, is the fact that some people treat food as a stress buster. For these people, eating is a hobby. This is particularly for those who are considered emotional eaters. When they are stressed or worried about something, they will indulge in the pleasure of eating without considering the harmful effects of this on their bodies. Another problem is combining food with leisurely activities such as watching television or reading a book. You completely forget about the calories while doing this. Finally, the one thing that is an absolute no is indulging in a high-calorie meal or snack just before going to bed. This is a very common habit among teenagers.
Listen to the recording and answer the multiple choice question by selecting the correct response. Only one response is correct. There is a perception that some people are naturally more fortunate than others. Do you believe that you are significantly more or less lucky than these other people? These are the questions that have fascinated many people for centuries, and certainly, a great number of superstitions, lucky charms and talismans have dominated history and civilizations across the world. This would indicate that humans have an almost innate belief in the power of luck. The superstitions we hold on to today have long histories. For instance, number 13 is believed to be a very unlucky number, because that was the number of people at the table of Jesus of Nazareth's Last Supper. Touching wood originated from pagan ritualistic patterns of invoking the powers of tree gods. Many people do not move under ladders. This superstition does not come from the notion that a bucket of paint may drop on your head as you pass underneath. Rather, the shape of the ladder lying against the wall makes the shape of a triangle, which was thought to symbolize the Holy Trinity, and passing through it would break these powerful bonds and bring ill fortune.
Listen to the recording and answer the multiple choice question by selecting the correct response. Only one response is correct.
The treatment of sleep disorders are typically grouped into 4 categories depending on the cause of the disorder, but these can be combined to provide a more holistic approach. The first is behavioral and psychotherapy. The second group is rehabilitation and management. The third is medication, and finally, the final category involves other somatic treatment. The last category could include medical intervention, such as the use of appliances which can be used to keep the airway open, corrective surgery, or CPAP therapy. Management of sleep disturbances which are secondary to a mental or medical disorder is best focused on treating the underlying conditions first and providing adjunct therapy that is appropriate for treating the sleep disturbances as needed. Medications and somatic treatments most often provide rapid relief for some disturbances, either by helping to induce sleep or providing relaxation for the sufferer. Certain disorders are best treated with medication. Other disorders are more appropriately approached through behavioral interventions.
You will hear a recording about promotion and relegation in sports. At the end of the recording, the last word or group of words has been replaced by a beep. Select the correct option to complete the recording.
In the world of sports, promotion and relegation refers to a process in which teams are transferred between two divisions based on their performance for a completed season. In this case, the best-ranked teams in a lower division are promoted to the division directly above, whereas the worst-ranked teams are demoted to the division below. For some sport leagues, playoffs or qualifying rounds are used to determine the
You will hear a recording about out-of-the-box thinking. At the end of the recording, the last word or group of words has been replaced by a beep. Select the correct option to complete the recording.
The phrase thinking outside the box, or its variants, is a metaphor that suggests one to think differently, unconventionally, or from a new perspective. The phrase often refers to creative thinking. This phrase has ended up becoming both a catchphrase and a cliché. It has become widely used in business environments, particularly among management consultants and executive consultants. It has also been used and referenced in a number of advertising slogans. The idea of thinking outside the box is to look farther and to try thinking beyond what is.
People speak thousands of languages in the world today, and same goes for the bird world. All bird species have effectively their own languages, and there might be similarities between some languages just as there are in the human world. In fact, some birds are known to pick up on the language of other species. In particular, they've learned to detect danger by eavesdropping on the alarm calls of other birds. Andy Radford, a professor of behavioral ecology at the University of Bristol, he says that study shows birds can learn from their peers, without ever seeing them. Or a predator either.
Traveling is a big deal. Going out there and exploring the unknown is a life-changing experience. The thought of being alone can be frightening for many people, but you don't have to do it alone. Packing of luggage becomes more fun when you're doing it with your loved ones. Trying new, crazy things can only bring benefits to your relationship. You get to try new things, discover new places, connect with different people and, most importantly, you can have a deeper understanding of you as a couple. There will be certain situations which can push you to the limit. It's soothing to know that you can hold somebody's hand when you need it. It is because of traveling that you get to know and understand so many new things. You'll get to know places and people that maybe you have disregarded before.
As people, so many times move into a new place, they develop a feel for an area by establishing and building up landmarks in their mind, in hopes of not getting lost, giving them peace because of some familiarity with the landmarks as well as the atmosphere. People begin to have stories to tell about of what happened to them at that school, that park, that church where they met their first love, that house which has been home for a long time. In some ways these landmarks become sacred to us as places where significant things happened to us. These events at these places shape us into the people we are today. In some of those locations God speaks into a person's life.
The key findings seem to contradict our initial hypothesis.
Human beings compete with other things for resources and space.
Some people regarded this as eyewash, whereas some people ask for the status of their complaints.
People speak thousands of languages in the world today. And same goes for the bird world. All bird species have effectively their own languages. And there might be similarities between some languages just as there are in the human world. In fact, some birds are known to pick up on the language of other species. In particular, they've learned.
Traveling is a big deal. Going out there and exploring the unknown is a life-changing experience. The thought of being alone can be frightening for many people, but you don't have to do it alone. Packing of luggage becomes more fun when you're doing it with your loved ones. Trying new, crazy things can only bring benefits to your relationship. You get to try new things, discover new places, connect with different people and, most importantly, you can have a deeper understanding of you as a couple. There will be certain situations which can push you to the limit. It's soothing to know that you can hold somebody's hand when you need it. It is because of traveling that you get to know and understand so many new things. You'll get to know places and people that maybe you have disregarded before.
As people, so many times move into a new place, they develop a feel for an area by establishing and building up landmarks in their mind, in hopes of not getting lost, giving them peace. Because of some familiarity with the landmarks as well as the atmosphere, people begin to have stories to tell about what happened to them at that school, that park, that church where they met their first love, that house which has been home for a long time. In some ways these landmarks become sacred to us as places where significant things happened to us. These events at these places shape us into the people we are today. In some of those locations God speaks into a person's life.
The key findings seem to contradict our initial hypothesis.
Human beings compete with other things for resources and space.
Some people regarded this as eyewash, whereas some people ask for the status of their complaints.